On February 14, 1779, British explorer Captain James Cook is killed by natives during his third visit to the islands. There are nearly 1 million native Hawaiians living in the remote archipelago. A crowd had gathered by the water's edge when at the far end of the bay a shot rang out from one of the British boats, and the chief Kalimu, standing in his canoe, was killed. The Hawaiians began to don their war clothing, and when a challenging motion was made toward Cook, he turned and fired his musket. Then his Marines fired. When the King's Guards charged, the Marines, who had no time to reload, headed for the water. Many of the men, like Cook, could not swim. In 1893, roughly 125 years since Captain Cook arrived, and 70 years after the first white Americans arrived in Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani is overthrown, ending the Hawaiian monarchy. The new U.S.-backed government requests annexation to the United States. About the 22nd of January, a paper was handed to me. It proved to be a purported act of abdication for me to sign. The idea of abdication never originated with me. I knew nothing at all about such a transaction until they sent it to me. For myself, I would have chosen death rather than to have signed it. In 1906, the intentional policy and methodical plan of Americanization begins. The Hawaiian language is banned from use in schools and government. There are fewer than 35,000 native Hawaiians by this point. This plan sought to obliterate the national consciousness of the Hawaiian kingdom in the minds of the school children throughout the islands. It was developed by the Territory of Hawaii's Department of Public Instruction and called the Program for Patriotic Exercises in the Public Schools. Decades of immigration cause interracial discord, riots, strikes, and infighting. In 1941, the Empire of Japan bombs the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, and martial law is declared, lasting until the end of World War II in 1945. In 1959, a dozen years after the Statehood Commission was founded, Hawaii becomes the 50th U.S. state. The population of native Hawaiians stands at just over 100,000. 1968 sees the brand new TV show Hawaii Five-0 confronting the problems of overpopulation and the erosion of tradition in its second episode, Strangers in Our Own Land. Since this policy of denationalization began, it had become so pervasive and institutionalized throughout Hawaii that the national consciousness of the Hawaiian kingdom was nearly obliterated. It also had a devastating effect on the Hawaiian population that effectively made them strangers in their own country. Native Hawaiian residents of Kalama Valley on the east side of Oahu resist eviction to protest the condemnation of their land for residential and commercial development. The protest launches the Native Hawaii movement, modeled on the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. It seeks Native Hawaiian recognition, lands, and rights. Ed Michael, an executive who carried out the orders to evict Native Hawaiian residents of Kalama Valley and raze their homes, declared, "In today's modern world, the Hawaiian lifestyle should be illegal." After decades that saw Hawaiians denying and neglecting their cultural heritage, the early 1970s brought a renewal of interest in traditional Hawaiian music, arts, and crafts. The time was right. It was okay to be Hawaiian again, and Hawaiians began to be proud of being Hawaiian again. In 1971, the Merry Monarch Festival shifted its goals and objectives to replicate the ideals of King Kalakaua, who sought to revitalize the Hawaiian people and culture. This revamped festival would gather the best hula dancers from all the islands, showcase Hawaiian artistry, and create a performance to serve as a rite, a celebration, a statement about Hawaii and its people. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the United States declared martial law in Hawaii, and Kaho'olawe, a place considered sacred to Native Hawaiians, was transformed into a bombing range. Weapons testing started almost immediately with ship-to-shore bombardment and later with American submarines testing torpedoes by firing them at shoreline cliffs. In 1976, Walter Riddy and other members of the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana began a series of occupations on the island, risking arrest or death as they tried to stop the bombing. "It was a huge story," said Nainoa Thompson, president of the Polynesian Voyaging Society. "They would take on the whole federal government, the military, the Navy. Yikes. And the federal government and the Navy couldn't do anything because they are willing to give up everything. They weren't compromising. And that whole statement was revolutionary for everyone that wanted to see that there was some justice to the Native people in their own homeland." Hokulea, our Star of Gladness, began as a dream of reviving the legacy of exploration, courage, and ingenuity that brought the first Polynesians to the archipelago of Hawaii. The canoes that brought the first Hawaiians to their island home had disappeared from Earth. Cultural extinction felt dangerously close to many Hawaiians when artist Herb Caen dreamed of rebuilding a double-hulled sailing canoe similar to the ones that his ancestors sailed. On that first voyage, we were facing cultural extinction. There was no navigator from our culture left. Hokulea's first voyage to Tahiti in 1976 was a tremendous success. Place names of Hawaii and the Hawaiian Dictionary helped secure Mary Kawena Pukui legendary status in Hawaiian history and culture. Kawena really is the primary informant for how Hawaiian culture is practiced today. She recognized that the language and the knowledge were being lost. Kawena felt incumbent on her to make sure Hawaiians who came after her would be able to go to her work and learn from it. Thanks to Mary's work and the work of concerted efforts of a grassroots organization of parents who want Hawaiian to be their children's primary language, in 1978, the state designates Hawaiian as one of the 2 official languages of Hawaii. In 1984, independent Hawaiian immersion schools began operating. The OHA grew out of organized efforts in the 1970s to right past wrongs suffered by the Native Hawaiians for over 100 years. Hawaiians' newfound activism brought their plight to the consciousness of the general public, leading grassroots leaders to propose at the time that income from the land taken from the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdoms be used to benefit Hawaiians. Thanks to the OHA, Hawaii elects its first Native Hawaiian governor. In 1993, President Bill Clinton signed United States Public Law 103-150, informally known as the Apology Resolution. Although the histories of Native Hawaiians and Native Americans are significantly different, there is still a widely held perception that Native Hawaiians have received similar kinds of unfair treatment from the U.S. government as Native Americans. The Apology Bill is thus seen as a means of acknowledging historical grievances that they believe are valid. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembles, the Congress apologizes to Native Hawaiians on behalf of the people of the United States for the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii on January 17, 1893, and the deprivation of the rights of Native Hawaiians to self-determination, expresses its commitment to acknowledge the ramifications of the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii in order to provide a proper foundation for reconciliation between the United States and the Native Hawaiian people, and urges the President of the United States to also acknowledge the ramifications of the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii and to support reconciliation efforts between the United States and the Native Hawaiian people. Despite advances thanks to the efforts of Hawaiian sovereignty activists over the last 50 years, there is still a considerable way to go before they can rest. In late 2019, they took to the slopes of Mauna Kea to oppose the desecration of their sacred mountain by a proposed 30-meter telescope. The peak at Mauna Kea is the highest point where land touches the sky, where the two deities, Sky Father and Earth Mother, meet. Bolstered by such famous Hawaiian and Polynesian celebrities as Tulsi Gabbard, Jason Momoa, and Dwayne Johnson, the protesters pledged to stop the telescope project at all costs. After more than 5 months of protests, Hawaii's governor was informed that the project would not be proceeding with construction at this time. But for the Hawaiian people, for the 40,000 of my own race and blood, for them, has this mission of mine accomplished anything? Oh, honest Americans, hear me for my downtrodden people. Their form of government is as dear to them as yours is precious to you. Quite as warmly as you love your country, so they love theirs. It is for them that I would give the last drop of my blood. Will it be in vain? It is for the American people and their representatives in Congress to answer these questions.
Just for a day, our king and queen would visit all these islands and saw everything. How would they feel about the changes of our land? Could you just imagine if they were around and saw highways on the sacred grounds? How would they feel about this modern city life? Tears would come from each other's eyes as they would start to realize that our people are in great, great danger now. Cry for the land that was taken away, and then yet you'll find Hawaii. Could you just imagine if they came back and saw traffic lights and railroad tracks? How would they feel about this modern city life? Tears would come from each other's eyes start to realize that